Daniel Morgan had always believed that real love was built on small things. Not the big declarations, not the expensive gifts, but the way Emily would squeeze his hand when they crossed the street, the way she would finish his sentences, or the way she would catch his eye at crowded parties as if he were the only person in the room. For 10 years, he felt safe in that love. Solid. Certain. But everything started to change the year Emily got her promotion. She was suddenly busier, always rushing, always tired. Her phone was glued to her hand. She smiled less, talked less, and whenever Daniel asked if something was wrong, Emily would only give a soft smile and say, "Just work. It'll get easier soon." Except it didn't. Weeks passed. Then months. The distance grew, invisible but powerful, like fog between them. Daniel kept trying surprise dinners, weekend trips, late-night talks, but Emily remained one step away, like she was drifting someplace he couldn't follow. The first sign. It was a Sunday morning in early October when Daniel first suspected something was truly wrong. Emily was in the shower, and her phone buzzed on the dresser. He wasn't the kind of husband who looked through his wife's messages, he hated the idea of it, but the name on the screen froze him. Michael Harper. A co-worker. A man she had mentioned only once or twice, always casually, always with that tone people use when something is irrelevant. The message preview read, "Last night was impossible to forget." Daniel felt his heart slam against his ribs. His hands trembled. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. He didn't open the message. He simply placed the phone back where it was and walked out of the room. When Emily stepped out wearing her towel, humming softly, Daniel tried to look normal. Tried to act normal. But inside him, something had cracked. The second sign. A week later, Emily told him she had an overnight work retreat. The kind where phones might be off and "don't worry if you can't reach me." Daniel nodded, trying not to show how much it hurt. But after she left, he sat in the living room staring at the wall for hours. Something in him whispered that this wasn't real, that the truth was somewhere else, waiting to be uncovered. At midnight, he couldn't take it anymore. He grabbed his coat and keys, stepped into the cold, and drove toward Emily's office. His instincts weren't wrong, her car wasn't there. He drove by her favorite places, unsure what he hoped to find. And then he saw it. Her car. Parked outside a small boutique hotel on the edge of the city. Daniel parked 2 streets away and walked quietly, each step heavier than the last. He didn't want to see anything. Didn't want confirmation. But he kept walking until he reached the lobby window. Through the glass, he saw Emily. She was standing there, hair tied back, wearing the same beige coat she had worn when she left the house earlier. But she wasn't alone. Michael was beside her, his hand on the small of her back. They were checking in together. His fingers brushed her waist, an intimate, familiar touch. Emily didn't push his hand away. Daniel watched her smile, an unguarded, soft smile he hadn't seen in months. It felt like someone had pulled the world out from under him. He didn't confront her. He simply turned around and walked back into the night, the cold wind hitting his face like needles. The morning after. Emily returned home the next morning, smelling of hotel shampoo and something else, guilt. She kissed Daniel's cheek and said the retreat was exhausting but productive. Daniel just smiled and nodded. He knew. She didn't know that he knew. And a strange, suffocating silence settled between them, 2 actors in a play that was falling apart. The breaking point. 3 weeks later, Daniel reached his limit. It was a quiet Wednesday night. Emily was in the kitchen chopping vegetables. Daniel walked in, took a deep breath, and said softly, "Can we talk?" She froze. Something in his voice must have told her the truth, this wasn't a normal conversation. She put down the knife, wiped her hands on a towel, and turned toward him. Her eyes flickered with fear. "Of course," she whispered. "What's wrong?" Daniel swallowed. "What's going on with you?" "With us?" Emily looked down. For several long seconds, she said nothing. The silence was louder than shouting. I've been confused, she finally said. About myself. About my life. About everything. Daniel's chest tightened. And Michael? She closed her eyes. That alone was confirmation. When she opened them again, they were filled with tears. It wasn't supposed to happen, she said. I swear. I didn't plan any of it. How long? A few months. The words were blades. Daniel felt something inside him collapse, quietly, painfully. Do you love him? He asked. Her silence told him everything. The collapse. The next days felt unreal. They lived in the same house but barely spoke. Emily slept in the guest room. Daniel walked around like a ghost, unable to eat, unable to think. He replayed everything, every smile, every kiss, every moment that now felt like a lie. He wondered what he did wrong. Why he wasn't enough. Why she didn't fight for what they had. But deep down, he knew something else. Emily hadn't just betrayed him. She had abandoned the version of herself that once loved him so deeply. The decision. One night Emily knocked gently on Daniel's door. I think I should move out, she said quietly. Just for a while. To give us both space. He nodded. There was nothing left to say. She packed a bag the next morning. Daniel watched her go, not with anger, not with hatred, but with a deep, quiet grief. The door closed behind her. And the silence that followed was heavier than anything he had ever felt. Aftermath. Weeks passed. Daniel started rebuilding his life piece by piece. Therapy. Long walks. Journaling. Trying to remember who he was before everything shattered. He realized something powerful. Emily's betrayal wasn't about him. It was about her, her fears, her emptiness, her confusion. It didn't make the pain any lighter, but it helped him breathe again. One evening, months later, Emily came by to pick up the last of her things. They stood in the living room, surrounded by boxes that used to fill their home with memories. I'm sorry, she whispered, not meeting his eyes. Daniel nodded. I know. Maybe one day, she began, but her voice broke. Daniel shook his head gently. Emily, we're not those people anymore. She cried softly. He didn't reach out to comfort her. When she finally walked out of the house on Willow Street, Daniel felt something unusual. Relief. Not because he stopped loving her, but because he finally accepted the truth. Some stories end long before we admit they're over. And some betrayals, as painful as they are, become the beginning of a new life.